Hey everybody! So today we're going to talk some more about transit stuff and solar arc stuff, specifically about Uranus entering Gemini, when that happens, why that kind of concerns me. And I know it's still kind of far out, but there have been I've noticed so many posts, places, not just Reddit, but other places about Pluto's return here in the US. And while Pluto's return, I think, has a correlation for sure with Uranus entering Gemini, I actually think Uranus entering Gemini is overall more concerning than Pluto's return. That doesn't mean Pluto's return isn't concerning, though, too. It is, because I think Pluto's return kind of sets the tone for Uranus entering Gemini. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, just because I've been seeing like more posts about Pluto's return. I know I've done some stuff on Pluto's return myself, so and yeah, I figured this was just a good time to do this. So, okay, Uranus will enter Gemini. See, I wrote it down. It'll enter Gemini in July of 2025. Now it'll slip back and it'll go retrograde back into Taurus in November of 2025. But then it will move into Gemini for good, meaning it won't retrograde back into Taurus. It'll move into Gemini for good on April 26th of 2026. And it will stay in Gemini for good through August 3rd of 2032. Now, it will also on August 3rd of 2032, it'll pass into Cancer, but it won't stay in Cancer. It'll retrograde again into Gemini and then go into Cancer for good. Exactly when I didn't look at that, but we're looking from April of 2026 through August of 2032 as being when Uranus is in Gemini completely for good in that time period. So why does Uranus entering Gemini concern me? I know I've mentioned this in other videos. Anytime Uranus has been in Gemini in this country, the US, we've been at war. Obviously and we'll also be in our Uranian return at this time, because the US's natal Uranus is in Gemini. So obviously during the Revolutionary War, we were at war. Uranus was in Gemini. During the Civil War, we were at war. Uranus was in Gemini. And during World War II, we were at war, and Uranus was in Gemini. We had gone through our Uranian returns not during the Revolutionary War, but during the Civil War and during World War II. We were going through our Uranian return, the US was. So that, looking at the history angle of it, that is concerning. It is. Now also, if you want to, let me show you, this is a chart. Don't worry about the solar arcs on the chart for just a second. Uranus in the US's natal chart, it's in the 6th house, but it's very close to the descendant. So I would almost I would consider this is like conjunct the descendant. Now the descendant is like the shadow, right? And when I say shadow here, I don't mean like the shadow that you're not aware of, because literally the descendant is where the chart sets. So there's like literal shadows, like when the sun is setting, there's literal shadows on the ground. That's what I mean here. Like that kind of shadow, not like an unconscious shadow, but a more conscious one. Like you're aware of it, but you kind of ignore it. You kind of don't pay attention to it. Or, really want to mess with it. Uranus happens to fall there in the US's natal chart, meaning, Uranus can be a lot of things. I do think of chaos in this case. I do think that the US is more chaotic than we like to pay attention to or like to admit. I think we oftentimes are. And in Gemini, that feels even more like scattered. Now, I don't think that we like to admit this about ourselves, but I do think that we are rather chaotic. I think we are a rather chaotic country. I think we cause chaos other places too. almost like because we're chaotic, we need to have that chaos in other places, which isn't a good thing. But there is we do, especially anymore, we do feel rather chaotic. And I mean, like, even the way that it is, to me, it's chaotic. And it's a chaos that we don't really like to pay attention to or think about. Another thing, you know, we are very, you know, Uranus is like liberation too. But, and while we try to liberate, like with other countries and stuff like that, or liberate, we try, I don't really, that's up for debate, I guess, if we really ever do that, right? But I think it ends up being done in like such a scattered way that we might end up doing more harm than good a lot of the time. Because Gemini, I think in this case, Uranus and Gemini, I think, can be kind of scattered. Gemini energy can also be kind of manipulative. We might have our liberation, like the liberation that we do as a country, that we have, there might be it might be done in a more manipulative way, perhaps. Now, Gemini energy doesn't have to go that way, but knowing what I know about the U.S., you know, those things do kind of fit here. But again, I don't think that this is anything that the U.S. on the whole really wants to admit. Now, those are just some ways that it can go. There are a lot of ways that you could play with. You know, you could look at both the Gemini and Uranus cards or whatever and play around with that. But I would think of this, even though natal Uranus in the U.S.'s natal chart is in the 6th house, I really would read it more as a conjunction with the descendant, with the shadow. I really would here in this case, and in the shadow, in the way that I'm defining shadow, in this context. Now, when I look at, there are a lot of, okay, so I think some heightened days, I'll start with the transits. I think some heightened days for all of this energy to kind of come about might be around July 26th of 2027, November 5th of 2027, and May 11th of 2028. That is when transit Uranus will be conjunct exactly the U.S.'s natal Uranus. Now, in this case, since the U.S.'s natal Uranus is direct, the one on July 26, 2027, and May 11, 2028 will probably be more important, maybe, just because transit Uranus will also be direct at that time. So some shit might start up. Exactly what, that's really far out, so I'm not going to really, that's really far out for transits, but I could see something coming about on those days. Or around those times. Maybe not exactly on those days, but around those times. I also wanted to pull the solar arcs. The solar arc for when... I wanted to pull the solar arc for when... For April 26th of 2026. When transit Uranus enters Gemini for good. When it won't retrograde again back into Taurus. Once it's in Gemini for good. And this is what comes up. Oh, let me see something real quick. This is what comes up. Look at the solar arc midheaven. It is conjunct natal Uranus. Now, it will have actually been exactly conjunct the year before. But it's still within that, like, 2-degree separating that I've talked about. To me, honestly, when I see that, the first thought that pops into my mind is this country becomes an agent of chaos. That really is the first thing that comes to my mind. And because we're talking about the solar arc midheaven, this does seem like it probably is on the world stage in a more public way. Now, this could be us actually causing chaos other places, though I am more inclined to think it's chaos here in this country. I really do. I'm more inclined to think it's that, and that we're kind of on the world stage in that way, like people watching, rubbernecking. That's how this feels to me right now in 2021, which is 5 years away from 2026, 4.5 years from, April 26th of 2026. But that is kind of where my mind goes first. We will also have solar arc Mars will be just coming out of the conjunction with the natal moon, which means that whatever has been set in motion, whatever sort of aggressive or aggravated, emotional, what have you of the country, will be coming out of that, which means whatever damage has been done from that will have been done, and I think kind of sets this feeling of being an agent of chaos in motion. Now you also have the solar arc. You have solar arc south node, and it is damn near exactly conjunct natal Saturn. Now that one's interesting. That makes me think that this almost and again, I don't quite know exactly how this will manifest. You'd also want to look at transits and all of this sort of thing too. But this almost makes me feel like we are, as a country, are going to be called to check our mastery, check our authority, check all of these things. Perhaps starting at the beginning feels, or going back to the beginning in a way. It does kind of feel like that to me. Like there might be some echoes from the beginning that need to be fixed or rectified, that we might be called to do. It's just, my question is, how are we called to do that? How does that happen? I've got some ideas swimming around in my mind, but I don't really, that'll remain to be seen. It will depend on, what this actually looks like at that time or closer to that time. Also, solar arc, let me see, how close is that? The solar arc, okay, it's not exact yet, but the solar arc north node will be, well, no, actually I wouldn't count that. I wouldn't count that here yet. I wouldn't count that. I wouldn't count that. But the solar arc south node for sure. Conjunct natal Saturn does feel like a callback of some kind. So I think we are in for some interesting times. I think we really need to be careful about how we communicate with each other, how we try to liberate each other as a country, and even, other countries around the world. I think we need to be careful with that. And I think we need to be careful that we don't cause more chaos. Like, liberation is a great thing, right? Like, liberation is a great thing. I'm always on the side of that. As long as it's wanted, and as long as it's wanted. And I think it does need to be done in a non-chaotic way, probably, for it to really last, or for it to really stick. Or stick the first time. I think we all just need to be really mindful of that around this time. But yeah, I'm going to get going. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck with Astrology. I'm at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie's at Paternal Astrology on Instagram. If you want to like or subscribe or whatever people do with videos on YouTube, you can find us by searching for Let's Fuck with Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you do the Reddit thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck with Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.